Thank you for visiting Past the Wire TV, the YouTube channel of PastTheWire.com.
History remembers moments of extraordinary strength, skill, and determination. True greatness is forged by those who fulfill their destiny.
How's it going, everybody? Geo Sette, right back at you with Past the Wire. Of course, as promised, I said I'd be back this week with a very detailed handicap and thorough analysis and full breakdown, horse by horse, and then giving you my precise order, 1 through 9. 9 horses entered in this year's Belmont Stakes 2023. A race I've always embraced with heart and desire. As you know, I've attended many, many times over the years being a New Yorker. And first things first, the 50th anniversary, 50th of Secretariat's amazing run in 1973. Of course, I was just a juvenile then. I was only 10 years old. Got into the game in the late 70s. So yeah, I remember those battles with Affirmed and Alidar and, Spectacular Bid. But I don't remember watching Secretariat live. But what a race. 224 flat. And I still hear the race call. He's moving like a tremendous machine. It wouldn't be right to do a Belmont Stakes show without talking about Secretariat and Secretariat's 31 length victory, 50th anniversary. So I've got that out of the way. Of course, Big Sandy is the longest dirt track in America, 1.5 miles. That's the significance of the Belmont Stakes. Test of Champions, third jewel of the Triple Crown. So what I'm going to do is lay down some of the facts that many of you may be aware of. At least you should if you follow the game. But for those that aren't, I'm going to give you some important bullet points coming into the race. And then, of course, we're going to do a very deep dive, breaking down each one of the starters from the 1 hole to the 9 hole, 9 starters. And then I'm going to give you my precise order of finish. But during the process, feel free to take notes because I think you may want to. I'm prepared, and I think it'll be very worthwhile for you. All right? I am on a 3-race Belmont Stakes win streak. A couple years ago, actually during the COVID year, I was all over Tis the Law, as many people were that day. It's when it was an abbreviated Belmont Stakes, shorter distance, run later on in the year. But the last 2 years, more importantly, crushing Epic Center and Hot Rod Charlie, Cold Exactor in 21. And then last year, what a race Moldonical ran over the Philly Nest and Skippy Longstocking for third to hit a cold $375 triple. Was a wonderful thing for myself and many of my followers. So I'm going for my 4th straight Belmont Stakes. Let's make it happen. All right, so the foundation of information, 9-horse field, Todd Pletcher, who's got 4 Belmont wins, has 2 horses running. Brad Cox, who won the race with Essential Quality, has 3 running. Very important to keep that in mind. You have a 2-time winner in the Jock Rosario, who won on Sir Winston and Tonalist. Tonalist back then was a lightly raced colt who came, who emerged in his 3-year-old campaign to win the Belmont Stakes. I got something to tell you. I watched a lot of film in preparation for this race, and I also watched some past Belmont Stakes because I always like to go back to the specific days. study the rides of jockeys, because history has a lot to do with this. All right? I'm a big believer of the significance and the importance of pedigree, the bloodlines to be built for this distance of 1.5 miles. It's not for every horse, and that's why they call it the Test of Champions. Okay? So I went back to, you got to watch this race. Going back to 2016 Creator, when IRAD won with Creator. You want to see a masterful ride? And this is going back 7 years. But the way IRAD knew he had tons of horse, saved ground on the inside, and then timed things perfectly to making a very aggressive, powerful move in a stretch. He had to go in between horses. But that's what you need. And that's setting the tone for me to talk about this race being a jockey's race. What IRAD did that day to emerge victorious was absolutely spectacular. Okay? So, more of a foundation, keep in mind that this Belmont Stakes, as many Grade 1 races are, but especially the Belmont Stakes, the 1.5 mile, Big Sandy, it's a jockey's race. It's a jockey's race. You have to have the horse, but it's a jockey's race. And that's something you have to embrace, okay? Last year, another thing I mentioned is We the People. After they won the Jim Dandy, I actually wrote down the fractions. I wanted to put this in perspective for you. Everybody said, hey, he's the speed of the race. He's the speed of the race. He's going to wire him. And he took in a lot of money. He was an underlay for sure. The fractions were 24, 48, 4. 3/4 were 113 and 3, and a mile was at 137. But you know something? If you watch the horse, because he wasn't built for the distance, just didn't have nothing left in the final quarter. So Mo Donegal, Nesk, and Skippy Longstocking all passed him. And by the way, in the same race, Rich Strike was well bet. Huge underlay again. No value at all. Barely didn't he didn't even get a call. Wasn't built for the distance. Keep those things in mind. In 2021, the pace was much faster. It was blistering considering the Belmont Stakes. 22 and 3, 46 and 4, 112 flat, 137 4. Now, Rock This World that day was an underlay. Again, wasn't built for the distance. Folded right around the top of the stretch. Took in a lot of money at 5-1. And then, what a run for Hot Rod Charlie. I'm sharing this with you because he was an exceptional colt, a real fighter. You got to be a fighter to win the Belmont Stakes. That's why he lasted. Eventually, best 3-year-old of the year, Essential Quality, emerged victorious. But Hot Rod Charlie had lasting power because he was a fighter. Even though he ran a huge race with blistering fractions considering it was the Belmont Stakes. And he had so much more to go. A little more of the history. 2017, Tapit, who was also a very expensive yearling, son of Tapit, 1,200,000. He skips the Preakness and wins the Belmont. Fabulous race to watch as well. Watch the race, running down Irish War Cry. I'm giving you some of the history, so you understand something you really need to embrace, the significance of what it takes to win the Belmont Stakes. It's not just a race. And I know it's cliche to say it's the Test of Champions, but, you're going to understand when I go over it with you, okay? So I'm going to be back in just a sec, and we're getting ready to do a very deep dive in all the horses.
Tracking trips with Pick 6 King John Stetton. It's one of the best tools in horse racing for any level of player. It's your second set of eyes, spotting troubled trips, betting angles, track trends, horses to watch and favorites to fade, 10 figs, ticket structure, and more. At Tracking Trips, you're a friend with benefits. Not a member? You must hate winning money. Join Tracking Trips now. Visit pastthewire.com and we'll see you in the winner's circle. Remember, nobody does it better.
Okay, so we're all set to do a very deep dive into the entire field. So please follow with me. And if you need to, take some notes because I think a lot of this information would be worthwhile for you to make an informed decision Saturday late afternoon, early evening, about 7 o'clock. All right, so the Belmont Stakes, field of 9. I rank this field as a pretty, let's call it a quality field because, you know, the Preakness field was good, but somewhat suspect. There was a few 3-year-olds that really didn't belong in the same class. And the Kentucky Derby had all that bouncing around, the scratches, and, you know, still was the Kentucky Derby, but it lacked the luster of all the horses that should have been there who weren't. All right, so Belmont Stakes. Let's start off with the horse in the rail, Tapit Trice. Now, by the way, I have my form on my large screen where I noted it up, so I'm going to make some references to that if you see me checking out my screen. Because I did an awful lot of film study. Remember, it's a combination of very detailed race replay, film study, recognizing the behavioral patterns, the horse's ability inside and outside, how well they accelerate, recognizing the intangibles that are important for a championship type of run. And of course, the past performance is obviously essentially important, inclusive with the workouts. And as I mentioned earlier, the pedigree is paramount. Year after year after year, in this race, the bloodlines matter. There are a couple of exceptions, but for the most part, they really matter. All right, so Tapit Trice, nice looking colt, son of Tapit, broke his maiden at the fairgrounds. It was a special weight. He was well bet that day. Then, for whatever reason, took him a little time to develop in his 3-year-old campaign. They laid him off for a couple months, and he ran a pretty good race in his last. What's impressive about him, and Brad Cox is high on him, and you get Jose Ortiz, who won this race once before, so you know you're going to get a quality ride, and the confidence is behind Brad Cox. And I feel Tapit Trice is improving, and he will move forward, even in this race. Is he good enough to win the whole thing? Nah. It would have to take a monumental effort to surpass so many of the others who are more seasoned and who are flat out faster. But make no mistakes, likely race horses have won this race before, and he does have the pedigree. Of course, $300,000 is a yearling. What I'm going to do is give you facts and figures and initial thoughts with every one of the horses, and then you'll know where I rank them. So I gave him a pretty decent ranking, but not to win this race. All right? So let's move on to number 2, Tapit Trice, the real Tapit in the race. $1,300,000 is a yearling. Beautifully well-built gray, stocky, long, imposing strides. Did well as a juvenile. Remember, before the Kentucky Derby, he came into the Derby with a 4-race winning streak. He's a quality colt. Sayaz aboard. Now, Sayaz, if you remember in the Kentucky Derby, horse did start slow. But all things considered, I believe a lot was saved with this colt from the Derby. They didn't squeeze the lemon, so to speak. When he knew he couldn't, and he was well wide, when he knew he couldn't threaten to hit the board, when I watched that race time and time again, I don't think they beat him down or he asked him to go full tilt. So there was something saved in the Kentucky Derby. Remember, when you're last and you have to pass 17, 18, 19 horses, it's a lot of work. Obviously, if you look at this Tapit Trice's body of work, he's done it numerous times before. Slow start out of the gate, got into position, and then he has a significant long striding, eating up ground type of turn of foot. He likes to be on the outside, so I'm sure that Sayaz will keep him there, especially when it counts. I don't think he's an inside runner, but he is a fighter. And you need horses who have shown that intangible, that grit, the guts, the ability to run fast in between horses when asked. I think he's in great shape. His workouts were suitable for him. They don't need to be too fast. Since a lot was saved in the Kentucky Derby, and of course he didn't run in the Preakness, this guy's got a huge shot. Consider him extremely dangerous to run them all down. I believe the pace of the race is not going to be sizzling fast, but it will not be methodically slow. It won't be pedestrian like it was in the Preakness. And I'm going to get into that as I go over a few other horses. So with a moderate pace, and with Sayaz, and by the way, Sayaz had a real tough way of it, not only Kentucky Derby Day, but on Preakness Day, his horse First Mission scratched, and a horse that was 3-5 for Bob Baffert broke down and he fell, and he just had a miserable Preakness Day. So now he gets this stage again on a very, very live horse. And when it comes to the bloodlines and the way this horse is developed, bias speed rating wise, do not think that he took a step back in the Kentucky Derby. I was shocked when he basically didn't get a call. But when Sayaz knew he didn't have enough to threaten to the win, I believe, even though he got 7th, I believe it wasn't a full ask. And he will come running and come running hard. You're going to see this gray with these long strides, Belmont Stakes Day. Major threat, win contender. Let's go to number 3, Arcangelo. Now, Arcangelo is a pretty nice story. I like the story with Jenna Anatucci. She is a good trainer on the Florida circuit. So I like the story of a trainer like that, a female trainer having an opportunity to race a horse in the Belmont Stakes. Castellano's up for the 3rd time. Son of Arrogant. Has been improving, but like I mentioned earlier on when I talked about We the People coming out of the Peter Pan, the race over the track was a solid race. He ran his best figure, and he was well bet. And he certainly was game in the stretch. And he's got Arrogant. Son of Arrogant is good bloodlines for this race. But it's a $35,000 yearling purchase. I just feel the horse is overmatched. There'll be a little run in him, but a lightly raced horse like this, as compared to Tapit Trice, or when I spoke about Toneless, when Toneless won the Kentucky Derby, just built way differently. You know, the horse ran exclusively in Florida, came to Belmont, and won the Peter Pan on a square, and he was game. I just think that I don't know if there's a step forward, and to me, he's outclassed here. He's outclassed here. So I won't be using him in my exotics. That's the number 3, Arcangelo. Let's move on to the 4-horse, Bob Baffert's National Treasure. Now, we all know he won the Preakness, and that was quite a stretch duel. He waited all out there on the track. He was actually passed briefly by Blazing Sevens. I was impressed with his body of work. The fact that he's been entered in 4 grade ones, but only winning one of them. So I did further study. I said, how many of these races was he in a position to win, and he just didn't get the job done? He collected paychecks, but he didn't win. So that's telling me, and a lot of that was on the West Coast, and he seemed to travel very well. No doubt he'll be setting the pace. I'm not entirely sure he'll be alone on the lead, but let's face it, probably after 6 furlongs, he should be by himself in the lead because he's got the classiest speed in the race. Do I feel he's built for the 1.5 miles? I don't think. No, not in this spot. 500,000 is a year when you got Johnny V. Like I said, we all know what he did at the Preakness. He's a threat based on his front-running ability and the fact that he displayed that tenaciousness that you need in a stretch. You know, he got to the finish line before Blazing Sevens. But when you think about it, how much did that race take out of him? And what if the fractions are faster, which they will be? All right? They're not going to be sizzling, but he's not going to be able to have a pedestrian pace in the Belmont Stakes. They're not going to hand the race to him. He's going to have to work hard for it. And there's 3 or 4 horses that are going to be coming really hard in the stretch. So you got to keep that in mind. A contender, I'd be wrong to say he's not a contender, but he needs a lot of things to go well with him. I like his work at Belmont, 59-2. He's training well. He's in great shape. But I think he's going to be out of gas once they get to the quarter pole. All right? The only way he wins this race, if he gets the benefit of if others fail, and the pace is ridiculously pedestrian, where the effort of some of the top contenders closing, they won't be able to get to him. But moderate to fast, and I don't even think he's built for the 1.5 miles. You know, like I said, those grade ones where he didn't win because he didn't have that nose for the wire that you need on a consistent basis. Solid colt, good horse, contender, but he's not for me on the win end. All right, we get to Il Miracolo. Il Miracolo.
They're off in the Curlin Florida Derby. After 3/4 in 112-1, Known Agenda is now on to take over the lead. It's Known Agenda for St. Elias Stable. Florida Derby winner, Known Agenda.
Okay, so Il Miracolo, son of Gunrunner, but the horse is making his 11th lifetime start. Ran as a juvenile, kind of like that. I like his experience, but the horse significantly inferior in terms of speed rating numbers, no matter what chart you look at. So I'm following the buyers because I'm a buyer's guy. But grade 3 Holy Bull, the grade 2 Fountain of Youth, the Florida Derby, all 3 ballooned odds, never bet at the window, 56-1, 103-1, 98-1. He wins the optional claimer before getting to this race. Marcos Meneses, I like the fact that he's a hard-working rider. I like the fact that he's getting a mount in the Belmont Stakes. But folks, look, he's 30 to 1, I believe, on the morning line. He should be about 70 or 80 to 1 in this race. If he's not, he's an underlay. To be honest with you, all his racing in Florida, the only plus I see with him is, and this is all due respect to Antonio Sano, the fact that he's a son of gun runner, but this horse just he hasn't demonstrated the ability to contend in this race, and he won't. So he's actually my best bet to run last. I would not use this horse in any of your exotics. He's got a nice little work coming into the race, but he's done all his racing in Florida. I give him a lot of credit for bringing him to the Belmont. This would be a shocker if this horse won the race. I don't see him hitting the board. I'm going to put a line through him altogether. That's the 5, Miracolo. All right, let's go. A couple of the big boys. Number 6 is Forte. Now, most of you, unless you're living under a rock, you know Forte's story. Champion 2-year-old, scratched out of the Kentucky Derby, big-time connections out of the Pletcher barn for the Rapoli stables. IRAD OT's on board. Now, keep in mind, please keep in mind, you guys know IRAD's ability, but keep in mind that he knows Belmont exceptionally well. And if you want to get a flavor of his ability, please go to YouTube and watch the Creator race from 2016. Just a masterful ride around Big Sandy to win the race. It was all IRAD. Yeah, the horse had to have the ability, but IRAD rode that horse to perfection from the start of the race until he crossed the finish line winning the Belmont Stakes. Forte, make no mistakes, he's on a layoff. We know that. But working, in my opinion, brilliantly. I like his works throughout the month of May. Over the Belmont Strip, he's won over the Strip, broke his maiden, winning by almost 8 lengths in the 5 furlong sprint, going back to May of 22. He's got one blemish on his entire record, and that's that grade 3 Sanford over at Saratoga. He was well bet, but he was wide, and he just didn't have it that day. And he's built imposingly. This is a horse that not only should be respected, but he has a significant class advantage over everybody else in the field. 4-time grade 1 winner. 4 times. Say that again. 4 times. So you can't dismiss that. And if you look at what he did in his two races as a 3-year-old, in the Fountain of Youth at Gulfstream, ran down the field like he was like a motor car, and he didn't have the best of trips as well, but blew away the field on the Fountain Youth, grade 2. And then the way he won the Florida Derby, I don't even think they squeezed the lemon entirely, but when Mage took the lead and that horse had maybe 100 yards to go, about a 16th, he just willed himself to win the race. Now, there's been some questions. He scratched out of the Derby. There was also a stumble in one of his workouts. But my gosh, he's there to win it. Must be respected. He doesn't have the electric pedigree and bloodlines that I feel you need for this race, but the horse is full of heart. He's got IRAD on him. Pletcher's won this 4 times. Major threat, very dangerous. If you dismiss him, I think that's a bad move. Almost impossible to throw him out of your exotics entirely, even if you don't have him to win. Let's move on. Hit Show. Now, these last 3 horses, very interesting. I did extensive film study on these last 3. Starting with Hit Show, then Angel of Empire, and Red Route 1. So Hit Show, Brad Cox has this horse, I feel, probably better than he's ever been. However, All right. If you watch his last 3 races. Now the Withers was early in the year at Aqueduct. He ran his best race. He had a little trouble. It's the grade 3 Withers, but he bossed the field, took complete charge, and won by over 5 lengths. He showed the fight. He showed the willingness to extend and have that very fast turn of foot in the stretch. Then the Wood Memorial, he broke from the third. Well, it shows the 12, but he was the 13 that day because there was an inside scratch. A lot of fight, tenacity, willingness to run late. Lord Miles finished a nose ahead, and we know Safi Joseph. We don't know if Lord Miles was on something. I had him that day, but just a gut-wrenching stretch duel in between horses. Showed a lot of heart. Then the Kentucky Derby. Now, trust me, if you go and watch this yourself, he actually ran a very good race for the first mile. He had the pace in front of him, but when they turned from home, sticking out like a sore thumb was the red number 1, and he had every opportunity to win the race, and he just flattened out. All right? He ran a good race in the Kentucky Derby, but if you watch it on tape and stop it and pause and go forward again, he had every opportunity to win the Kentucky Derby, and he just didn't have it in deep stretch. Quarter of a mile. So now you're asking the same horse, even though he's got wonderful pedigree on both sides, a sire and a dam, for this race. I just, you know what? I was knocking my head a number of times watching this because I like a horse with guts. I love a horse with the pedigree. I think Brad Cox has him in great shape. He's only working exclusively at Churchill Downs, so Big Sandy and Belmont is brand new to him. But me knowing Belmont, how imposing the track is, to go 1.5 miles here and to beat some of the horses I've already spoken about and one I'm about to speak of, it just didn't add up to me. So you'll know where I put him in my final precise order of finish, but he's the type of horse, he's going to have a good career. I couldn't side with him here, and I couldn't even put him in my triple. Does he have a dangerous way about him for the deeper gimmicks? Yeah, because, you want that fight. You want the bloodlines, but I just ask him too much. He worked so hard in the Wood. He worked so hard in the Kentucky Derby, and he was right there. He had the opportunity to win, and he flattened out. Just didn't have it. So we're going to finish off with the last 2.
Gentlemen, here with some exciting news. DRF Formulator, the gold standard in past performance information, is now free, exclusively on DRF Bets. Join DRF Bets with the promo code WINNING. Get a $250 first deposit match bonus, a $10 free bet, and free Formulator already uploaded to your account. Access Formulator's premium features, including sortable trainer stats, race replays, personalized trip notes, and lots more. Free Formulator, exclusively on DRF Bets.
All right, so here we are. We got to number 8, Angel of Empire. Now, for the loyal followers of my handicap and in my columns, this guy made me some money over in the Arkansas Derby. He was my horse that day. I got a nice price on him. So I have like a partial love for him, because whenever a horse makes me money, I like to stay with him. But got to handicap every race as an individual. So Angel of Empire, Brad Cox's biggest threat in the race. Wonderful form as a 3-year-old. As a juvenile, he won it first asking, as the favorite, maiden special. Went to Kentucky Downs on the turf, didn't show anything. And then they laid him off a bit. It came back in the fall of 22, and he won like the wind blows. But his times, his bias speed rating, and his overall performance factors weren't sensational as a juvenile. So this is a horse that has developed tremendously as a 3-year-old. And that's what you want. But that's what's happened. So he's a son of Classic Empire, bought at a discounted price. He began his 3-year-old campaign literally on January 1st, second in the Smarty Jones. And then he ran a big race in the Grade 2 Risen Star. That's when he started to open up some eyes, because he had this, if you watch the race, just a real imposing, aggressive turn of foot. And then he took that ability and ran even better in the Arkansas Derby, the day I had him. That's when they switched to Flavian Pratt. So now, we've got to talk a little about what happened in the Kentucky Derby. So in the Kentucky Derby, if you watch the race, and trust me, I go mental when I watch these races, Pratt missed a huge opportunity, all right, to bring him off from the inside. He had an opportunity to beat Mage, to be in Mage's position, where if he did that, he probably would have won the race, because he ran big in the Kentucky Derby. He ran big. Mage had the perfect trip. And Castellano, well, give him credit, he made the move first before Flavian could make the move. So now Cox, I think he's got him primed. Make no mistakes, this horse is absolutely imposingly dangerous based on his progression as a 3-year-old. In my eyes, he could have won the Kentucky Derby if all things went well for him. He was gaining, he had momentum, he looked to take the track really well. So now they're putting blinkers on him. Now, I'm not entirely a fan of that, because he's run so well without blinkers, so now they're putting blinkers on him. Cox knows more than I do, but I'm a little, somewhat concerned with the equipment change, because I don't think it's needed. But he's got blinkers coming on. Obviously, he doesn't have to navigate through such a huge field. He's got the numbers. His 104 buy is the best in the field. He's shown the type of progression that one would think that he's sitting on a big race to move forward and win. Is he built for the 1.5 miles? Based on his 3-year-old performance and his overall pedigree, I believe he could make it, but not at the high level or the highest level as some of the others in the field. He's a Grade 1 winner, one time. Of course, that's the Arkansas Derby. So that puts him in the class. He doesn't have 4 wins like Forte, and he doesn't have the imposing bloodlines and the long, powerful strides of a Tapit Trice. But this horse is fit, dangerous, another one who's worked exclusively at Churchill Downs. Cannot argue with a 59-4 breeze for the race. One of the better 3-year-olds in the division. Dangerous, win contender, but when I go over my final precise order, I'll add another comment. Let's go on to Red Route 1, the bottom horse, number 9, Stephen Asmussen and Joao Rosario. Now, Rosario's won this race. He's also another jockey. Beginning of this video presentation, I said the importance of the race being a jockey's race. Rosario, at his best, he carries that swagger. He knows Big Sandy. He knows his way around Belmont. Now, does he have the horse? Now, this is a better son of Gunrunner. Some people like to classify him as a plotter. I don't. I think he has an aggressive turn of foot. What they did in the Preakness, I didn't think was good. I think they asked him to go earlier, and so he could be closer to the pace. And when the pace was pedestrian, he didn't have anything left to pass anybody in the stretch. To me, he ran an even 4th. I think they're going to go back to his running style. I think Rosario is going to be in a position, putting him in a position, whether he's got to be inside or out, probably very similar to the way Tapit Trice is going to run the race, and he's going to make one big run. Is he a significant contender to win? Probably not. But I wouldn't be shocked if this horse ran a career best race, knowing he has that much ground in front of him, and if the pace is at a moderate to fast pace, which I believe it will be. He has the experience. He's not a Grade 1 winner, but he's raced in several Grade 1 races. He's been beaten by Forte. He's been beaten by Angel of Empire. He's been beaten by National Treasure. He defeated Tapit Shoes. Like I said, they tried something different in the Preakness. It didn't work out. I think they're going back to what this horse is built to do. And Rosario knows the oval. And I trust a rider who's got that swagger and who's been there before in this race. So there we have it. I gave you pearls or some negativity on all 9 horses. So remember, you should have taken some notes, but now I'm going to give you the Geo Sette precise order of finish. Now, you could do a lot of things with the precise order. You could go for cold winner, cold exacta, cold triple, cold superfecta. I know I will. I like being decisive. But because of the competitiveness and the strength of this field on the top, you do have to have flexibility when it comes to multi-race wagers. You pick 5, you pick 4s, you pick 3s, your daily doubles. And your deeper exotics like your triples and your supers. But here's the Geo Sette 2023, going for 4 years straight, precise order of finish. First, Tapit Trice. I believe the big gray with his long, powerful strides, and having something to prove. I think he's going to get it done. And I like a horse that's fresh. And he wasn't used up in the Kentucky Derby. They didn't squeeze the lemon. He has a big run coming to him. 2, the class of Forte. Dangerous win contender. I think they're both going to be very close to the wire. This will make it a Todd Pletcher exacta. Irad Ortiz. I think Forte is going to come with a big run. He's a 4-time Grade 1 winner. I would see these two feverishly approaching the wire together. Forte is my second choice. Third choice, Angel of Empire. For everything I mentioned about the horse, training wonderfully, absolute win contender. I just think grudgingly he's going to come up a little short. You may have 3 horses in a photo. I think he'll come with his run. I'm not sure about the blinkers. Could he win the race? Absolutely. If he continues to move forward. And if my guys, Tapit Trice or Forte, don't fire. But I think he comes up a little short. He's my third choice. My fourth, rounding up the superfecta, is Red Route 1. For everything I said, Joao Rosario, Stephen Asmussen, going back to the way he should have ran. One big run, flying in the stretch. Maybe he catches the triple, but he'll be filling my superfectas. Now the next 2, or the next 3, are all good horses, but I'm going to put it in this order. I like the youngster. I like Tapit Shoes, the way he's developing, and the fact that he has the bloodlines. He's my 5th choice. Barely above, and like I said, he'll be tactical early, and I think he may last for a share, but he's my 5th choice. 6th choice is Hit Show. Now, originally, and this is where I was knocking myself in the head, I liked Hit Show because I liked his pedigree a lot, and I thought he was a fighter. Okay, but his last 2 races, the Wood Memorial and the Kentucky Derby, when I saw he didn't do anything with his positioning in the Kentucky Derby, I said to myself, this horse needs a layoff. So based on his bloodlines, I'm giving him. I may put him in a few superfectas to fill, but I have him running 6th in this race. 7th is National Treasure. Now, this is a wild card. If the pace isn't what I say, what I feel in my bones it's going to be, National Treasure could hang on and be third or fourth. I don't think he's going to be first or second unless they give the race to him. National Treasure's my seventh choice. I just think the final quarter, with the class coming at him, if the fractions are where I feel they will be, for the half, for 6 furlongs, and the mile, if they are what I feel they will be, I don't think he's going to have what he had left in the Preakness, and he'll fold and probably run fifth, sixth, or seventh. I have him marked seventh, but he definitely improves. And do I respect Baffert and his ability to make horses win on the front end? Absolutely. But this, to me, I have to see it with my own eyes. I can't put my money on it. I can't. Eighth, Arcangelo. Arcangelo, the Florida horse. I like the female trainer, Jenna Antonucci, but the horse just seems to be overmatched. Is probably going to be around early and fold in deep stretch or before the top of the stretch. And of course, the horse that runs last, he should be last on everybody's ticket. I actually have this as an 8-horse field, not a 9-horse field, because Il Miracolo, based on his numbers and his lack of performance, inferior buyer numbers, I see him finishing last. If I can make a bet, I'd probably bet him that he'd be last. All due respect to the connections. All right. So, Sette, Belmont Stakes 2023. There you have it. Please, questions, comments, bring it to us. We appreciate your loyal readership and the fact that you're tuning in to Past the Wire TV. Stay with us for the rest of the year. You get me providing the Haskell for you, another race I've crushed numerous times. Last year was a huge score. And then everything Saratoga has to offer. The Alabama, the Whitney, the Travers, some of the other graded stakes races. I may come on for that. All leading to the Breeders' Cup Championships later on in the fall, in the first week of November. All right? So if you're ready to make money? Let's go! Belmont Stakes 2023, Geo Sette down the road, going for my fourth straight, crushing.
Nobody does it.